we are faced with a tragic circumstance. This Caribbean world has the lowest rate of enrollment of its citizens in universities and colleges in the entire hemisphere. From Alaska to Argentina, the Caribbean has the lowest enrollment in education at the higher level in the entire hemisphere. And yet, we continue to believe, in the midst of this statistical data, that we cannot afford education. If we cannot afford to invest in education, we are not investing in the future of our peoples. It is particularly important when you realize that a society's potential for economic development and social sophistication is based upon the number of people within it who have been exposed to formal training and higher education. Every development model that we have looked at have emphasized the same fundamental point. If your citizens are not educated at the higher level, technically, philosophically, the societies will not develop. And if we in the Caribbean, if we have the lowest enrollment, you take the age cohort 18 to 30, and that age cohort, we have the lowest in the hemisphere. And if a region's potential for development is a function of the number of its citizens so exposed, then clearly we have a problem staring us in the face. Yet, we are rolling back. And Winston Ducran, I wish to say this. At the moment, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and these Caribbean islands has the most expansive investment in tertiary education in the entire region. And this has to be celebrated. This has to be seen as the model for the future. In my own island, Barbados, we have just seen a 30% collapse of the enrollment of citizens in higher education in the last 5 years. An island that is struggling to achieve even 1% economic development. And it is rolling back its investment in education. That is counter-revolutionary. This is the counter-revolution of which we are speaking that has stalled our development. And I wish to end with this point. Let us take seriously the notion that all of those countries that have achieved phenomenal economic development in the last 30 years, they were driven by a desire to turn around the legacy of disrespect that their citizens have experienced in the colonial period. They're driven by the need to turn around the disrespect imposed upon their citizens in the colonial period. And whether it's China, whether it's Japan, whether it's India, all of those countries are driven by this imperative. The United States was driven by that imperative in the 19th century. We in the Caribbean have to use our historical experience as a source of energy to drive our civilizations and our peoples out of doubt and despair. In other words, we have to rekindle the Caribbean revolution. I thank you.
I was just saying to Sir Hilary, now he has me in real trouble because I actually went to get the red card for him. Can you imagine? But no doubt, setting the tone for really the context for what should be taking place in the next today and tomorrow. So maybe we'll forego our coffee break to get on track and to get the participation. Did I hear no? Listen to me. This is serious business. We're tending to the business of our souls. We could wait on the caffeine fix. Thank you. Do I hear yes to that? Yeah, okay. All right, so let's really start to move the sessions along now. And we're going to have, I'm going to invite Mark Wilson, who is going to be the chair of the first session this morning on global convergence, a place for the Caribbean. So once again, a round of applause for our speakers this morning. I think Sir Hilary is leaving us and PS is leaving us. Ambassador LaRocque and Ambassador Kadavia are staying on. I think you're part of the first panel. No? Hilary, we'd love for you to stay, but unfortunately, we have to get into the first panel. Thank you. Let's thank PS and let's thank Sir Hilary Beckles. Very quickly, what we'd like to do, these are little logistical issues, but for your session, before the end of the first session, could the panelists, the speakers for the second session, go to what we would be stage left? Yeah, so that they're mics. So could we have all the speakers for the first session? And Mark, I'm handing over to you.
Well, I think we've had a very disruptive and revolutionary start to the day, which is fantastic. And we want to continue like that. But for the benefit of the next speakers, we've got an hour and 25 minutes for a 2-hour session. So people have got to speak at double speed. And we've got to remember that if you're going to be disruptive and break glass, that's something that can happen very, very quickly. But I'm going to ask people to talk fast. If the first 2 speakers can stick to just a short 10 minutes each, and if the other ones can just really have 1 point, because we can only have 5 minutes each if we're going to have the opportunity for the pooling of ideas from this fantastic group of people here in the audience. But I'd like to start by asking Honorable Winston Ducaran, Minister of Foreign Affairs, to come up here and speak. Good to meet you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And may I say that we have had a wonderful setting for what I hope will be a most intriguing day and a rather disruptive day. I want to start in the 10 minutes allotted to me to deal with the issue that is at the heart of the challenge of leadership in the Caribbean region. That issue was put together in a few words by the former Prime Minister of Jamaica, P.J. Patterson, when he said, and I will quote, "It is high time that the perception of politics as an obstacle to the advancement of the Caribbean can be removed. To become the catalyst for meaningful change, politics must be visionary, but yet pursued through positive activism and principled purpose." He continued, "As we complete the first decade of the 21st century, there is indeed a moment to expose bold concepts which extend the frontiers of our knowledge, that also reflect a full appreciation of what is essential to fashion new political models, engender change, and deepen the democratic process." Those words were somewhat echoed by his predecessor, Norman Manley, when he said, "Old ways in politics are no longer equal to the new needs." I thought, from what I heard here this morning, that we will come during the course of this session and tomorrow's to focus on how we unlock the politics of our region in order to create the potential for that future of the Caribbean civilization. And to do so, we recognize that what we have achieved over the last 50 years has indeed been an enormous achievement. But the time has come for a new process to begin. And it is in that context, therefore, that we recognize, all of us in the region, as we move out into a different phase of our development, what is really promoting that. Globalization has been with us for some time, and in the case of the Caribbean, for all times. It is not something new. Our experience in the Caribbean region have shown how we can adapt and mitigate and reduce the uncertainties that the external world impose upon small developing countries here in the Caribbean and elsewhere. Kishore Mumobani, a noted diplomat and scholar, said in an introduction to his book called The Great Convergence, and I quote, "Deep in our guts, we all know that our world has changed significantly. Indeed, the world has experienced greater change in the past 30 years than it did in the previous 300. What we are struggling to find is one big idea that explains what we feel. That, I believe, is the concept of what he coined the Great Convergence." Our challenge is, therefore, to insert our region into the new world, must find a new architecture. And that is why we need to look deep into what are the pillars of the current architecture and how they must be altered and redesigned. "Why Do Nations Fail?" was the title of another provocative treatise recently. And it concluded, "It is man-made political and economic institutions that underline economic success or the lack of it." That was a historical piece looking at the origins of power, prosperity, and poverty in the world setting. This is why I have always been wedded to the idea